Welcome to the RockStar in Life podcast, where you learn the secrets to unleashing your inner rock star so you can make the world your stage.
Hey, fellow rock stars, welcome back. Dr. Dan in the house, and I've got my lovely guest host.
Siri Shakti in the house. Hey,
Awesome.
Hey, everyone.
Well, I guess you wouldn't be a guest host. You would just be a host.
I'm the host with the most. Okay, we should start over.
The hostess with the mostest. No, that's we're staying with this one. Sorry.
Okay.
This is sticking around here.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah, so what are we going to be talking about today?
Well, today we're going to be talking about breaking the rules, which
Break
is
the rules.
It's one of our favorite topics because, in our lives, in society, we are taught that there's so many rules that we're supposed to be following. We have rules that are, taught to us through images, through media, through, how our society is, and rules within families. And what we have found is that, through our journey and through our growth is that, when we talk about being a rock star in your life, part of that is being able to consciously step outside of all of the rules that you've collected over your lifetime and be able to see which ones are serving you and which ones aren't serving you, and which rules.
Which rules?
Yeah, exactly. I can't talk.
You're talking like a toddler now.
Yeah.
Which rules? We should do the whole podcast like that.
Sounds good. No. We want you to step outside of those rules and be able to look at them and say, okay, this is the one that I'm going to need to change, or maybe this is a rule that's not serving me anymore. And oftentimes, these rules that we hold within ourselves are very unconscious, and they're also directing our lives. So that's what we're going to be going over today.
Yeah, these are there are so many rules that I had to look within myself and just be like, you know what, that doesn't serve me. Where did I even learn that? And it doesn't even matter where you learn some of these rules that, have kind of, held you back, haven't allowed you to be your authentic self, haven't allowed you to just, you might be operating at 1% of your, capacity, and it's just been holding you back. And, imagine being able to, even if you just increase another 1%, that's 2%, that's double what you were doing before. Imagine your life if you just did double more. Now, obviously we want you to do a heck of a lot more than just 1% more, but that just kind of gives you an idea. I mean, these are old rules. These could be old rules that, were taught to you by, it could be a family member. It could be friends. It could be, friends that you had growing up that you don't really talk to anymore. Could have been, society, it could have been in school, just not even directly, somebody telling you need to be a certain way, but you seeing others or hearing others, and you just kind of wanted to mimic them. I mean, TVs and movies, today more than ever, kids, our kids as well, kids and ourselves growing up, we're completely taught so many of these rules from movie and TV. Back then, we didn't have, in our day, we didn't have what are some of them today? People call them reality shows, but I've always called them unreality shows.
Yeah.
Because they're not real. It's staged. And, so many times, they've been either sued or they've been, I don't know what the other word would be, found out or whatever, or exposed, that a lot of it was all set up. I've seen what is that show? Is it Pawn Stars or something, or one of those shows? I don't want to say which exact one it is because I don't know 100%. I just don't know it was one of them. They had they've gotten sued or something, or somebody said something that, that they had planted items inside the garages and stuff, and done this on purpose just to add to the effect. And then, I always tell my kids and others, when you're watching one of those unreality shows, keep a look on their camera angles, because if they're showing one side, and it's supposed to be something that just happened, and they're showing like multiple angles of the same shot where somebody's getting surprised.
Good point.
No, you didn't have 4 cameras or even 2 cameras lined up with a close-up waiting for the surprise that they didn't see you do that. I mean, no. Come on, seriously. But anyway, so those are old rules that, it doesn't really matter where you were taught them. I mean, yeah, it's kind of fun to like remember like, oh, where did I learn this rule? You know what? It doesn't serve me anymore. So screw this rule. I'm going to, karate chop it and get rid of it and break it. Right. Because, there really are no real rules in life. I mean, you could argue and people would, I've said this and people are like, well, no, there are rules. Like you shouldn't kill and do these, you shouldn't like, I'm not saying you should kill, but I'm saying like,
Nice.
There are these like, you go to the pool, don't run around the pool. Well, does that mean you can't run around the pool? I mean, what happens if you do? Does like, something, your legs like disappear? No, I mean, you might fall and hurt yourself or whatever. You might get kicked out of the pool, but those are guidelines. Like, look, you either follow this or we're going to kick you out of this pool area or we're going to put you on timeout or something like that. In life, it's not as simple. I mean, a lot of these rules are really just, they're just things that don't serve you or something that has been taught by somebody else or, and you don't have to let them control you anymore.
Oh, you know what? You just said exactly what I was thinking, control, because when before we sat down to record, we were talking about, what to us does it mean, the whole topic of rules. And for myself, I tend to go in the direction of what society teaches us just because that's what really resonates with me. And when you think of it on a real massive level, so much of the rules that we follow in society are things that have been passed down to us for generations and generations. And if you follow them back to where these different things began, so much of it has to do with control and having control over a large group of people. And I think about that when I'm watching, like, first of all, I love movies, I love TV shows, things like that. But I do like to dissect and see, let's say I'm watching the news.
Let's talk about movies, just okay. Movies alone. I mean, growing up, you're taught, in our day, right? Back in our day, before we had like movies on demand and stuff,
right.
And shows and things like that. You'd watch like a Disney movie. Right. Yes. And you can still watch them today. And we watch them completely different today. Like, we're just like, whoa, look what we were being taught. A prince has to come in and sweep the woman off of her feet and rescue her, and then it's this knight in shining armor. And then, then it's fade to black and, everything is beautiful.
Absolutely.
Right? There's no challenges after that.
Yes.
Because now they're going to get married, they're going to have kids, and then life's going to be perfect. There's no reason to even show what's going to happen after that. It's the end. That's why there's not like Cinderella Part 2, right?
Yes. And that is actually a perfect example because that is such a big rule that
nobody would want to watch that. Cinderella 2. She's all frustrated and, and
raising the kids.
and the husband and her arguing and they've got to make it through there. Kids wouldn't want to watch that.
No. But what you were saying, though, that is something I have heard time and time again from men, from women. That's a rule of this whole idea of, men need to be the knight in shining armor. And I remember even in our own relationship, that was something that I struggled with. I always looked to you in the past to fix all my problems. And it was so unconscious. And then eventually, I think really as I started practicing yoga and working with my teacher and stuff, I was able to take a step back and see just how much that idea of the whole knight in shining armor thing influenced me. And that was a rule that I wanted to change. So I began to step into the role of empowering myself. And that's why I think I love the image of like Wonder Woman and stuff like that, because she's just like a badass, like strong kick butt woman.
The new Wonder Woman.
The new Wonder Woman. Yes. I just think she's so great. Yes. She's so great.
No offense. I'm talking about like the comics and stuff. There were some really, I don't know if you guys knew this, but Google it, go and look up like the old I don't know, I guess you'd search like the most ridiculous Wonder Woman comics, and she was a racist.
Now I got to go look. Oh my God.
She was a racist. Yeah. So you go back to those original because, it's back in the war and stuff. So
yeah,
one of the wars.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's such a great example too. Since we're on this whole talk about media and movies, boy, I went back and I watched some old movies recently. I think one of them was like Breakfast at Tiffany's. No, it was Sabrina. It was the older Sabrina, and first of all, I love
Sabrina the Witch.
No, not Sabrina the Witch. No.
That's the only one I know.
I don't think you've ever seen this. Total girl movie, but. Love the newer one. The older one, regardless of how much I love Audrey Hepburn, it was so hard to watch because to see the dynamics between the typical male and female role and how he would talk to her and how she responded to him, it drove me nuts. And that was a role, rules that had been passed down. And so, I know we got into this whole talk about like gender and things like that, but this is just such a great example of a role that has been passed down, that has become deeply rooted within many of us as a role that is affecting our lives. Yeah. And so what we're challenging you to do here as, what we teach as being a rock star in your life is it's time to step outside of that. It's time to really take a good, conscious look at your life and see what are the things that you are following that you know that you need to step outside of and change.
Yeah, no, totally. My whole life, just like, every one of you listening right now, probably been told, or taught, conscious or unconsciously by somebody, how to be, what to look like, what you should look like, what to do, in your life. And I don't blame anyone. Back then I'd get mad and be like, you can't tell me what to do. I know what I want to do in my life, but I don't blame them. I don't blame them today because they didn't know any better. And still today, now they see a lot of the things that, that people are still in my life that told me, hey, I should get my head out of the clouds. I should do something different, that there's no future in what you're doing. And, and why you keep struggling, just go get a good job and things like that. They see now, that they were wrong. They haven't came to me and said like, Dan, I really, as you remember, I didn't believe in you, but I'm glad you didn't listen to me because now you're doing great. No, people don't say that. I don't expect them to say that. They didn't know any better, and if I gave up on the things that I wanted to do in my life and the dreams that I had, that I wanted to make a reality, then I have nobody to blame but myself. Yeah, it sucks having people that don't support you, but that will be a upcoming session that we'll do is a podcast topic, which would be, love your family, choose your friends. And that will be a whole nother topic on that. And, at the time I didn't know that, but I kind of stumbled into it. Right. And, thank God I did. Yeah. But I don't blame anyone else for that. And you shouldn't as well. You're responsible for your own life and it makes you stronger. It truly does. That saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I don't agree with it every time. how some people use it. It's kind of like in the movie Anchorman when he didn't understand the meaning of when in Rome. And he's like, when in Rome, what is that? And she's like, oh, it's just a saying. And then he like used it in some way that made no sense whatsoever. She's like, so I thought that was pretty funny. But, there are some things that kind of like, oh man, I lost my train of thought what I was going to say on that.
That's okay, because I actually want to tap in here with something that came to me when you were just saying that. So
my ADD kicked in. I saw a squirrel.
It will come back to you. Something that you and I have talked about many times, and I think that many of our listeners can relate to, is that growing up, I know for myself, and you've also mentioned this, that we kind of felt like we were different than many of our peers in school. And I know for myself, I always felt like I was kind of the odd one. And this also can be about breaking the rules, because sometimes breaking the rules is simply stepping into, we talk a lot about being authentic, but I really mean it, being your authentic self. And this really resonates with me because there was always this feeling like I was somehow different than everyone. And many times it felt very uncomfortable because I would see like the cool girls in school, and like all the guys liked them and they always had, I don't know, the cool clothes on. And there was just that whole image, like from the movie Clueless, they're all cool and everything. And part of me yearned so much to be like that. But then I think it was around high school time when I had kind of started going into like the rave scene, there was actually some real gifts that came from that. And one of them was that it really liberated my creativity and started to bring that out. And I started to really trust it. And one of the things I used to do was I would sew and make my own clothes. And I'd wear them to the parties, the raves and everything. And they were awesome. They were so cool. And I felt so good in them that I thought, I'm going to wear these all the time. I'm going to wear them to school. So I would go into school with my awesome homemade clothes on. And I'll never forget this one time I was at PE or we were walking into PE. And I had this shirt on that had rainbows all over it. And it was actually made out of a pillowcase. And the straps were little ribbons that I had tied, or little bows. And I thought this was the best shirt. I mean, I'd wear it all the time. And this guy, he was like one of the most popular boys in school. He looked at me and he said, "Why can't you ever dress like a normal girl?" And there was a little bit of feeling of like, oh, shoot, I'm being insulted, right? There's a little bit of that. But that feeling passed pretty quickly. And I actually went to this feeling of like, I feel good like this. Like, I don't care what you think because I feel damn good in this. And so that is another element of being a rock star in your life and breaking your rules because, many of us, I feel like we hide our true light. We're kind of just trying to fit in certain situations or be like what we think we're supposed to be within our family or within social groups. And I can tell you firsthand that there is so much liberation when you start to tune in to who it is that you really are and what that's going to look like and have the courage to just do it, regardless of how that looks. And Dan, I know that you've experienced that yourself because, going back to feeling different, you always told me that you felt like you were different than all of your peers in school. So how did you relate to that growing up and breaking your rules? And
yeah, well, I wouldn't even call it, peers, but yeah.
Yeah. But peers
Yeah.
being, the classmates in school and
the popular kids or whatever. Yeah, I didn't conform. So because of that, I would get picked on and they'd say, get in line and, get behind me. You're get out of the light. You're not a rock star. I'm the rock star,
Mm-hmm.
I'm the only rock star in this school. And you're behind me. I'm the most popular kid. And then people would fight over it, who's the most popular. And, and you see that in movies today or you experienced it in your own life. Mm-hmm. But it's I remember actually what I was going to say before I saw that squirrel, is that, the old saying is what doesn't kill you makes you stronger is just like, it's similar to let's say exercise, right? I used to bodybuild and lift weights and imagine if, you've never lifted a weight in your life before, right? And all of a sudden I'm, taking you to the gym and I hand you a 500-pound barbell to do a bench press on. Are you going to be able to hold that up? Definitely not.
No.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, very few people, that would be able to hold up that 500-pound, or whether it's a squat or a barbell press or anything like that. You have to, even today though, because I don't train heavy anymore, I would not be able to bench press a 500-pound dumbbell or barbell. I wouldn't be able to squat a 500-pound. I mean, I might be able to do one and then I'm not walking for a couple months. But, you have to work yourself up to that. You can't just all of a sudden do it. And that's very similar to what we're talking. It's actually exactly what we're talking about here. If it wasn't for all those challenges in your life that came across at the right time that you pushed through, you wouldn't be strong enough to be able to handle what's coming next. You wouldn't be able to get to the next place. You have to have those failures, those so-called failures, in order to have the successes that you're going to have in the future. Just like, you hear those stories where people say like, oh, I invested in, I remember a commercial. I don't even know if it was real, but I think they said it was real. I remember it was something, was it Apple or was it Bill Gates? I can't remember. It was one of them, right? They were like, it was like this commercial. They were in the, in this garage in the 70s or whatever. And they're like, yeah, you're going to invest in our company. Let's get it off the ground. And, they're working in the garage, getting this stuff going. And all of a sudden the dude's like, he's like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to do it. Cause I think I'm gonna get a car stereo. And, and then it shows them in the garage, like building their company. And then the guy pulls up in his car and he's like, yeah, check out my new stereo, and then the other guys that committed to that company. And again, like I said, I don't remember if it was Apple or if it was supposed to be, Bill Gates, with Windows. But it kind of showed like, they missed that opportunity. So my point on that is, you hear stories from people saying like, oh man, I had the opportunity to invest in this company or be part of this and I chose not to. And it became a huge success. And I've regretted that every day. Well, instead of being depressed and regretting that, instead remember that is preparing you for something even greater or for the next thing that's meant to be. So you keep your eye out and you're like, I'm never going to make that mistake again. And we're constantly, saying to ourselves, like whenever we make a so-called mistake or, or something, that we might regret or whatever, a failure, we learn from it and we remember it, as long as you don't repeat that failure again and again and again, then it obviously served you. And, again, I have an analogy where I say, like a lot of people that are not willing to break the rules, not willing to stick their neck out, they're kind of like the cows in the herd, right? If you ever drive by I know like now we live in Southern California, but when we used to drive from Northern California to Southern California and we, go down the 5 and you would see like, all these cows, just mooing along and and you see them just sitting there behind this little small fence, that they just can't get through for some reason. I mean, they're a big ass cow. They could push through that probably. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure
together they could. Yeah. There's like thousands of them.
And if they really wanted to, they could find a way through there, right? But I mean, they're just mooing along and they're just sitting there and they just don't know any better, right? They haven't had a leader come across and say, you know what? Let's get out of here. Let's see what's on the other side of this fence. Now, obviously in this scenario, it probably wouldn't be good for the cows regardless, because then the farmers would chase them down or they get hit by a car or something like that. But let's just imagine that they can get through and they find a beautiful thing. But, these cows are just mooing along and they're just sitting there eating their grass and they look over another cow and they're like, how's your grass? And he's like, my grass is good too. And don't be that cow in the herd. I know some of the things for me and many of you that we were taught was to go to school, get good grades, go to college, get good grades, graduate, get a good, secure job.
Yep.
Right. And then buy a house, start a family. And then, and then after, what was it, like 40 years or whatever, you get a $40 gold watch or something, a Timex or something like, or a Pulsar or some kind of watch like that. Yeah. And you get to retire. But you know what, that doesn't exist anymore. I'm sorry to say, but it doesn't exist. And, you need to break free from that. And thank God, I don't even know if people are still teaching that today. I mean, we know that people still tell their kids, you need to go to college, you know, I mean, their kids are like, 10 years old or something. And they're telling them like, they're already preparing them for, you have to go to college.
Yeah.
Now I have nothing against college. If the job that you want to do is, would be necessary for you to get a college degree, then yes.
To be honest, though, I mean, I remember I was reading, I forgot, I need to find it. There were statistics talking about how many people go to college. Okay, so the thing is what we're talking about is that it's just this common story that parents tell their kids that everyone has to go to college and that you won't be successful unless you go to college. So, and that's exactly what I tell my kids is like, when you get older, you're going to decide what you want to do. If you want to go to college because the profession that you want to do requires that you have to have that type of education, then awesome. We'll totally support you. But know that that's not the only way to go about it. I mean, perfect example is my husband. I mean, you didn't go to college and look at the success that you've created.
Well, I took a couple classes and I don't even remember what I took. I remember a couple things. And it was confusing. Right. And right. I definitely, nothing I could use today.
I think for so many young adults is college just becomes like this little holding period in their life where they're just taking classes and they don't end up actually even using their degrees or using their education that they got from it. And so there's all these years of, I don't know if it's, if it's right to say wasted time, but of time spent on that perhaps could have been spent on discovering something even more powerful that they could have used.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to be like a teacher, a doctor, a lawyer, or anything, any kind of position that would require that, then yes, go for it. Right. And we're not against college. Yeah. We're just against the idea of everybody has to go in order to be successful in life. And, a great example is, my partner, Ben, he actually went to college and he got a degree. He's got, what did he get? He got a business degree.
Did he get his master's?
I think so. I don't know. Anyways, he got something, right? He got
one of those things.
He got one of those things that I didn't, commit to memory. Yes. But yeah, so he did that and he doesn't regret it one bit. He loved college. He got a great experience from it. He doesn't really use his degree, but he puts it on a website, saying, hey, I did get this degree, but it's not like he needed it for anything. It's kind of like a street cred for him. But he learned a lot while he was there. I mean, there was a lot of little things that, he could have learned, most everything, if not everything, outside of college. But for him, it worked. It was great. It was great for him. For me, for you, no. When I say you, I mean my wife, Siri Shakti, right in front of me. It was not. It was something that slowed us down and held us back. And it was just like another form of school that told us that we weren't good enough. We weren't smart enough because we didn't learn the average way. We didn't learn like everybody else, or you heard my story. I don't remember if it was in the first episode or second, but where I talked about like how my teacher, said in, what was it, third, fourth grade, something like that, science teacher, she had said, hey, today we're having a quiz, a pop quiz, and we're going to be grading on a scale from 100% all the way down to Dan's score. And that was probably one of the worst things I can remember, but
heck yeah,
there were plenty of other examples where I get sent to the office and I'd be put in like in the what are those called? The basic math and basic this. And I would ace when I get in there, I'd ace it. And then they'd throw me back into the regular classes and then I'd go back down,
Yeah. Like classes where you get like extra help and.
Exactly.
They also lower the standards in those classes.
Yeah, and they gave us like the special pencils and stuff.
I was in those classes too.
Yep. So here's the thing though, you couldn't go to college to learn a lot of the stuff that, that me and my partner Ben teach when it comes to like online marketing and strategies and things like that, because, everything from social media to Google to Facebook, to all these, even Instagram and Snapchat, all these other, all these platforms and all these strategies and all these things are constantly changing. Technology, the software and everything is constantly changing, like sometimes daily, sometimes weekly, sometimes monthly. So, heck, we even create like training tutorial videos in our courses. And sometimes we create something and within a day, to a week or so, or a month, if we're lucky, it's a month, where something changes, the interface changes, or something changes, or something they've changed around. And all of a sudden, we have to make a whole new video. So imagine if you go to college to try and learn these things, it ain't going to happen because they can't teach you. By the time they print the textbook, it's already gone.
They'll have to print another one like a week later.
Exactly. I'll give you another example. Is actually a kind of a cool thing. I was driving, where was it? Like it was like a month ago. I had to go to the dentist, and I remember I took an Uber home. And the Uber driver picked me up, and, he was one of the, what do they call it? The Uber Black, I think it is. I always get the Uber Black. I don't know. I like having a little bit bigger of a car, and it seems a little nicer.
You just like having a whole SUV with just you in the backseat?
Yeah, and a lot of times they open the door for you, and they got water and everything. And I think the other ones do as well, the Uber X and things like that. But I don't know. I just like to always make sure I have a nice, clean car. They're usually better drivers too.
Nice.
So anyways, he picked me up, and we were driving, and I, always talking to people, and he had asked me, he's like, oh yeah, so what do you do? And he started talking about, things, and we somehow got on the topic of, like self-driving cars and how Uber is moving towards that, and Tesla, and, all these other, ways that they're trying to do that. And he's saying like he's worried because he's going to lose his job, and he's not going to have a job for himself anymore. And he also does driving with Lyft, Uber, and on his own. He's like, gave me his card, and I told him, I said, yeah, but I mean, it's innovation, and things need to move forward,
right?
And and nobody's that I can think of off the top of my head, nobody's safe to say, oh, I never have to evolve. I can just keep doing the exact same thing forever and keep doing, and keep making the same. No, things keep changing. No. And I told him, I said, like, the railroad industry, or actually, let's go back even further, like, I guess horse and carriage, right? Had horses, and then horses and carriage. And then you had like trains, and then we also had bicycles, and you had, replace horses, I guess. And then you had trains, and then from trains, you had the airplanes, right? I mean, it just keeps
evolving.
Yeah. So for somebody to say like, oh, I'm going to lose my conductor, job because, there's not going to be as many people taking the train to go from here to there. Now they'll take a plane, and there's always going to be something moving forward. So I told him, I was like, dude, you got to stop thinking that you are in the driving business, you're in the transportation business, and, you just need to evolve with whatever comes next, whatever comes next, you need to be part of that, and I don't even know what it is, I remember telling him something, but I think I was a little high on my medication, but.
Yeah, that's, I think that it comes from people having a fear of change, when they have something that they're doing that they're comfortable with, and fear of having to evolve. But going back to the rules thing, what I thought of when you said that was what many of us have been taught. I know with my grandparents growing up, they had the same job their whole life. And that was so much more typical back then. They would, like you were saying, have the good job, or, go to school, get a good job, a steady job, retire at whatever age, get a gold watch, and be retired. And you had made the comment that doesn't exist anymore, and it really doesn't. I mean, I was reading this article once that talked about just how many times people will be changing jobs now, currently and in the future. And people are just not sticking with careers the same way they were in, our grandparents and great-grandparents' ages or time.
Yeah, the world is different.
It's totally different. And especially, because we're in the thick of the information age, and information is coming and going so quickly. Things are evolving so fast that we can't just sit here like a slug and just and be unmovable. We need to be flexible. We need to flow with the change and embrace it as well. And I think that for those of us, we're going to see over the coming next years as we continue to move forward into this information age, that those of us that can be flexible within this are going to experience the joy of the information age and of, society evolving and technology evolving. And those of us that want to stick to, and not move, we're going to, those people are going to really struggle and experience a lot of challenges moving forward.
Yeah, no, I remember so many rules that, that people try to tell me, like I needed to calm down, I needed to settle down, and thank God they didn't try and drug me. They try to tell me to focus on just one thing. And, but that's not how my brain works. And I didn't realize that until, later in life, until I was in my, mid 20s, early 30s or something, that I realized that it was a gift, that
it is a gift. Yeah.
Being able to process, it's like, people, most people, average people, and this is, the ones that want to drug their kids and everything. When I say their kids, I'm not saying so much parents, but, teachers and schools and doctors.
Yeah, exactly. I want to touch on that after you're done with that.
Yeah. So for me, here's an example for those of you that aren't like this or think there's something wrong with you because you are like that. It's a gift. Think of it as like the average person that they're trying to make me be like, or make you, if you're like that, like me. Imagine like they look at a puzzle and they have to take one piece of the puzzle at a time and put this one down and then look around, take another one, put that down, look around, take another one, put that down. And that's totally fine. That's how their brain is wired.
Yes.
But, somebody like me, I come along and I look at, before I even touch a piece, I look at every single piece on the board and I'll see like 3 or 4 or 5 that can go together, and I'll grab them all and put them together. Right. And I'll just keep doing that. Is one way better than the other? Yeah, for putting puzzles together, but that's it. Not for other stuff. If the goal is to study for a test, then definitely not.
Right.
I would probably venture to say I would not make a very good, I don't know. I don't know if I'd make a good doctor, because I'd probably get distracted and start pulling on other stuff if I'm doing an operation or something. Like, what's that?
Yeah, we don't want you doing surgery, okay?
Exactly. So I wouldn't have the focus for that. But even better. And we'll talk about this in an upcoming, podcast as well, episode. Even better is if you were to team up with one person or 2 people that can look at the whole puzzle like me, and then like 1 or 2 people that do one individually, and you all work together as a team. And that's what makes some of the most successful partnerships, businesses, and ideas and everything in the world is that they partner together, whether it's somebody they partner, where it's equity, like, oh, I own this much and you own that much of the business, or it might just be them hiring people that are good at, one task, whether it be the creative or whether it be the focus or the management or whatever it might be. So there's a variety of ways of doing it, but it's about building a team. And I was going to give some quick examples as far as like, if you look at like people like Elon Musk, right? I mean, we talked about him before too, but he's such an amazing person. He created the electric car, right? Well, he didn't create the first electric car, but he created an electric car, and he's the first person to really make it go mainstream and to prove something that people were saying for years. When I say people, the people that had the control, right? Where they would say, and they were stuck at one way. They're stuck at this rule of, like, oh, electric cars are too slow. Nobody will want them. They're weak and all this other stuff, and they're not manly or whatever things they were saying. I remember hearing quite a bit of them, but, he turned around and said, no, they don't have to be. And you don't need a hybrid, you don't need half and half, let's get away from the gas, from the fossil fuels. So, let's do this.
Heck yeah.
And he did that. And it's awesome. But if you would have listened to the naysayers, if you would have listened to the people that say, hey, get back over here with the rest of the cows and eat your grass and shut up,
right?
Be satisfied, then we wouldn't have that today. And we wouldn't have this innovation today. If you look at, like, let's say Facebook, when Facebook came out, there was this thing called MySpace. Some of you are too young to even remember MySpace. Or you might not even been born. I don't know, around that time. I don't know if we asked our kids, hey, have you heard of MySpace?
No.
Yeah, they'd be like,
Whose
no,
space?
what is that? That's just weird. But when Facebook came out, MySpace was the king. And people were telling, him like, oh, you don't need another thing, and look what he did. And if it wasn't for, for that, I mean, Mark Zuckerberg wouldn't be, one of the richest people in the entire world today. Right. I mean, and, you look at like, let's say Snapchat. I mean, Snapchat is not that old. It's just, what is it? I don't even know how old it is, like
I'm
a year
not
or 2
sure.
years old or whatever. Well, it's more than a year, but let's say 2-3 years old, maybe 4. I don't know how old it is,
but it's not that old.
It's not that old. I mean, it definitely came way after, Facebook and after Instagram, right? So we already had Facebook, we already had Instagram, but I mean, if they would have listened to like everybody else saying, oh, we already have enough of those, then we wouldn't, have that today. He wouldn't be, again, I mean, I know it's worth more than $1 billion today. I mean, some astronomical number, right?
Yeah.
And also Netflix, right? Look at Netflix. I mean, could we imagine that today we'd be web streaming, we'd be streaming so many videos and movies online before we used to go to Blockbuster. And before that, Netflix would, send you DVDs in the mail. And I still remember when it first came out and, the older generation were all saying this won't last. Who wants to wait that long for a DVD or anything like that? But we loved it. We loved that we didn't have to, the convenience. We didn't have to go in, and rent a movie, that we can just, select it and it would actually, be in our queue for when it was released. And, hopefully we would be one of the first to get it, but look at like, so I mean, that wouldn't be around if they listened to other people. The Apple iPod, the iPod wasn't the first, MP3 player. I know there was like the Zune and there was some other stuff. I think they made fun of that in Galaxy of the Guardians of the Galaxy. You remember that? At the end of part 2, spoiler, but at the end of, I think it was part 2, he handed him because he'd been using a cassette player.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, oh, hey, this is, the
new technology.
This is the new technology from Earth. And he's like, oh, whoa, it can hold 100 songs. What?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I mean, yeah. And today the iPod or the iPhone, I don't even know how many holes. I haven't filled it up yet. It's like 128 gigabytes.
Speaking of that, I just have to add something to this. My son picked up a DVD yesterday at my mother and father-in-law's house, and because we were going to watch some old DVDs of like our wedding videos and stuff like that. And he goes, what do I do with this disc? Does it go in this thing? Like, I'm like, oh my God.
Well, no, he had it in the case.
Oh yeah, in the case.
Because it was in one of those like, jewel cases. It was a printed DVD that I had made years ago of home videos. And yeah, it was in this jewel case where you can see through it and everything. He's like, do I just put the whole thing?
Do I put the whole
shove
case
the
in?
case inside there and it just plays? And
Wow.
yeah, that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Definitely pretty funny. But one last example I want to give that I was thinking about that I thought was really cool was Spotify, and I'm not saying it's actually Spotify, but streaming music, right? Streaming music services. I like Spotify. I've tried like a couple other ones, but Spotify's pretty badass. I think I still pay the other ones like Pandora and some other ones out there. But the point I was going to make with that is, the reason why Apple was so late to streaming music. I mean, they've kind of just started recently. And the reason why is because, one of the reasons is because Steve Jobs, he didn't believe, I think they said he was presented with it or something, that one of his people or somebody like pitched it to him or something. And he could have been the first mover on that, but he didn't believe himself. He had the rule in his own head, whether he made it or learned it from somebody else, is that people wanted to own their music. People didn't want to rent for a service and not own the music. But man, we pay I think we pay I don't know, 10, 20 bucks a month for Spotify. And we have 5 accounts, for the family account thing.
We love it.
And the fact that you're able to not only download onto your device. So it's not like you're putting it in iTunes or anything, but you're downloading it so you can listen to it offline. So if you're in an airplane or whatever, you can still listen to it. So it's on your device and you're just paying a monthly fee in order to not own the music, but be able to listen to it whenever you want.
Yeah.
And you can create playlists and you can create everything. Who the hell wants to freaking buy music now? I mean, I remember when I'd have to buy music and it was a big pain in the ass because I would have to put it on my computer. I'd have to download it onto my computer, or rip it onto my computer, I should say. And then I'd have to, put it on iTunes. And then back then, iTunes would actually make it really difficult to actually, if you didn't, I forgot if you didn't buy it from iTunes or something, there was like something that caused it to like not always be allowed to be on your thing and say, sorry, we couldn't find the authorization or no, I think it was like you could only have this on so many devices or something. It was something that kept messing me up and I'm like, this sucks and I can't wait for somebody to fix this issue. But, Spotify came along and whatever other, streaming services came along and they could have done it themselves. They could have been the first and probably one of the only ones that would have been ahead of everybody else. But,
right.
They had their own rules in their head that, obviously did not serve them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know we were talking about examples of breaking the rules with like technology, and innovation like that. But there's one story that comes to mind, and I don't remember the first time I heard it, maybe from Tony Robbins or something, but remember the story about Sylvester Stallone, how he wrote the script of Rocky and he went to hundreds of, I don't know, what do you call it? Producers or what do they call it? Where you present your story. Well, anyway,
studio, whatever,
yeah. To present his script, and they'd read the script and, some of them just turned him down. A few times he actually got great offers for a lot of money saying, we love the script, but we don't want you to.
I think it was only one time he got an offer.
Oh, was it one time?
Yeah,
okay.
I think it was only one time. And he was broke and he actually ended up selling his dog.
That's right.
Yeah, he sold his dog just to like be able to pay rent or whatever he was paying for. And so the thing is he wanted to be in his own movie. I forgot to say that. So yeah, they said, hey, we'll go ahead and give you money for this, but you can't be in this movie.
Yes. And, here he was totally broke, could barely afford, to eat. And he knew in his heart that he was Rocky and he wanted to be Rocky. And so he moved on and eventually found, someone that was willing to make the movie and let him be Rocky. And I feel like that's such a good story of breaking the rules because, he was being told by so many people that you aren't good for this part. We don't like your script. But he decided to keep going because he knew that that was something that he wanted for his life. And look it was such a great success. I mean, Rocky, it's awesome, right? Who doesn't love Rocky?
Yeah, and he's making movies and movies, and he's bringing back like old 80s and 90s like action hero stars, and and making the Expendables, movies and stuff, which is really cool.
I was about to just yell out something, Adrian!
Yo, Adrian. Yeah.
Yo, Adrian. Yeah.
Nice. Now, there was something you wanted to mention about school. You had said like, oh, you wanted to cover something on that too?
Well, I did have something to talk about. I was, before we sat down today, I was thinking, what is an example from my own life of, maybe the biggest experience of breaking the rules? And the first thing that came to mind was my daughter, Kayleen. She's now 16 years old. And when she was, going through preschool, we started to be told by teachers, your daughter needs testing done. And, we were already getting told by certain family members that, she's, first different milestones were not happening at the so-called standard time that they're supposed to be happening, like talking and things like that. And so we already kind of knew like Kayleen was a little bit, I don't even like to use the word different, but I'm for, sake of trying to find.
We call it Kaylee pace.
Okay, Kaylee pace. Yeah, we always knew that she went at Kaylee pace. And, but in preschool, we started to be told she needs to get testing done before she enters kindergarten. And so reluctantly, believe me, it was reluctantly, we decided to go and do that. And we went through the whole testing, and really the only thing they could tell us at the time was there was speech delay and that she was somewhere on the spectrum. And so they had her go to speech therapy.
Which really helped us though, because we didn't know that, she was talking a little later than normal from all those tests.
Yeah. Having that diagnosis really helped.
Sarcasm.
Not.
Insert sarcasm.
Yeah.
Insert sarcasm. And because of that, I always whenever we talk to a doctor or anything, I always ask okay, so what do if we do this test or we do this, whether it's, for our kids or for ourselves, what is it going to tell us and what can we do about it? And so many times, that I've asked that question and they said well, then you'll know. And I'm like, and what can I do about it? I don't know. Well, oh geez, thanks. Yeah. Let me spend some money, some time, some energy and be all stressed out about something you can't even do anything about. Let's do that. Let's do that.
Right.
Sarcasm.
Yeah. So, we, did the speech therapy, and then here comes kindergarten, and she was going to be in, special education. She had an IEP, and I don't even remember how long she stayed in the actual public school, maybe a month or two or something like that. But I'll never forget when I took her. That experience that I think every parent has experienced before, where your intuition is just itching at you, telling you, this isn't right. This isn't right. And mine was actually screaming at me. My internal voice was saying, this is not a good choice for Kayleen. And the thing that was a little scary for me is that I didn't know what other option there was for us, because at the time, we weren't making that much money at that time. So a private school wasn't really an option. I looked at that, and those were rather expensive. And, I thought, well, homeschooling. I know nothing about homeschooling. I'm not, I didn't feel like I was that educated, but, I didn't like her coming home. She was picking up some interesting behavior from some of the other kids. And one of the things that really bothered me was there was so much constant talk about, amongst the parents and teachers, oh, what diagnosis does your child have? What are they? Oh, my child's autistic. My child has Asperger's. My child has, Down syndrome, you name it, so on and so on. I'm not trying to insult these diagnoses. Believe me, I understand that they can have value. But what I noticed is that it became more about the title than this is my daughter, this is Kayleen, And so anyways, long story short.
It was a limiting, it was like a limit. Like they're saying, oh, your child's this, so they can never do any of these things.
Yes.
Opposed to just saying what we would tell our child. Actually, I think we have told her, now she's, older, right? She's not a little kid anymore, and she's a teenager. So today we say look, this is what some doctors and people would diagnose you, and they would say you are this,
right?
But that doesn't mean anything. It just means that you're not like every single other person out there, the average person, the average. Mm-hmm. If you took everybody and tested everybody, you're not like a certain percentage, and that's it. That's all it means. It doesn't mean anything. It's just, again, and we can get political into that, into why.
We'll have to have a whole other talk about that.
Yeah. Let's save that.
But, I decided that I was going to homeschool, and I set out on this journey, and I had so many family members looking at me like I was crazy, and that I did, and I heard a whole lot, believe me. I got many words of negativity and discouragement, and not to name names, but there was one person in my life that said, you're not even a good speller. So who do you think you are to think that you could possibly homeschool your daughter?
Well, that person also gave you a, one of those spelling, what do they call the spelling checker device?
For Christmas.
For Christmas that you can carry around with you before we had iPhones.
Oh my God. Okay. Yes. So now I embrace my bad spelling.
Bad spellers unite.
Yes.
And that's spelled UNITE. Yeah.
Oh, this is fun. Yeah. So, here I set out on this homeschooling journey, and this was definitely that break the rule moment, because regardless of what everyone was telling me, I knew that this was the only choice. I had to lock myself into it because school was not going to be happening. And, I have to admit, it was pretty rocky for quite a while. And I had to figure out how to do this. I knew nothing about teaching. And here we are. She's 16 years old. She's this amazing girl, young woman. And sometimes I think to myself, if I could go back and have a little conversation with myself, and have seen how things turned out, I would have saved myself a whole lot of stress and tears, because there were a lot of stressful moments day after day and a lot of tears.
No, it was just all easy.
Totally.
Effortless.
Oh my God.
Well, now, and now so Kayleen's 16, Melina is 13, and then Bodhi is 8.
Yeah.
So we've been homeschooling from the beginning, and that was the start of it. And, we'll save that for a whole nother session where we'll just
that's going to be a good one.
Deep into that one of why we chose to do that. And do you have to do that as well? No. I mean, it's your life, your choice. You do what you feel is best for your family. There are other options out there as well. We don't really believe in sending your child to public school, though, just throwing them in the system. But, again, we don't want to get on that topic where, and again, I've heard there are some,
great
better
schools and,
better public schools, but still I'm pretty against the US, at least. I can't speak for, I heard Canada has some cool schools and stuff, and a better ratio. But anytime you throw, 30, 40, 50 kids, with a ratio of one teacher or even two, I mean, that's just too much. You need like a 1 on 5, or a 1 on 10 at the most.
Yeah. And also being, like we said, we'll get into this in another one.
Yeah.
But, also being delivered information that, who decides where this information comes from? And that's one big thing for me is that.
When you say information, are you talking about like what they're going to teach them?
Yeah. Some group of people decided what information was valuable. And that's one thing that I have found in learning how to teach my kids is that, wow, there's so much information that's left out.
Or even better, like we go through stuff we're teaching them, and like before we're about to teach them something, we do our own research, and then we're just like, I was taught something different.
Like Christopher Columbus.
They lied to me, I mean, wow.
Actually, I was having a conversation on Thanksgiving with a few people about this, how us growing up were taught that Christopher Columbus was this great American hero, and, he discovered America, and, come to find out, and I don't even know, I know that many states don't celebrate Columbus Day anymore. Maybe the whole U.S. doesn't. I'm not quite sure. I need to check on that. But now it's come to light the true story that, oh my goodness, that he was a murderer, him and his group of, his posse. And
we'll save that for a whole nother topic.
So here we go. Anyways,
let's keep this light.
Subject.
Let's not get dark.
Okay.
Yeah, so let's go back to
breaking the rules.
Breaking the rules. And again, I mean, get out there and whenever somebody gives you like a rule that that you feel like you need to question, then do question it. I mean, do your own research. Even things that we're telling you to do your own research, test things out, try some things, and figure things out for yourself for your own truth. I mean, you need to do that. We're telling you to think for yourself and get out there and, and do these things, though. Don't just sit back and not do it. Right. So one thing we wanted to do, we kind of want to make this a regular thing, is where we give you a mission, right?
Yes.
A RockStar mission. To complete each time. But before I do that, I also wanted to mention that I decided to I actually have 2 books that I wrote and a few years back, and I decided I'm going to put them in a PDF format, and actually I already have them in PDF, and then you can go to the website rockstarinlife.com and you can download both of those for free. So if you don't already own those,
beautiful,
you can go in there and just download them, and you can have both books: The Little Book of Secrets, How to Attract the Person in Your Dreams and Keep Them, and RockStar, 45 Lessons to be a Rockstar in Your Life and Make the World Your Stage.
Awesome.
All right. So back to the RockStar mission. If you choose to take this mission, and it will not self-destruct. So,
or will it?
Or will it? Yeah, we don't know yet. So we'll find out. Hopefully, it doesn't No, I don't say that because you joke around about that, and then their phone like breaks or dies, and they're like, "It's our fault."
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
So gotta be careful. All right. So the mission we wanted to give you, the Rockstar mission, is we wanted you to list 10 to 20 rules. You could list more if you want, but at least 10, between 10 and 20 rules that don't serve you anymore. Okay. And some of those can be any of the things that we talked about, somebody saying like, oh, you need to go to school for this, or you need to do that, or you need to behave a certain way, or you can't do this because of this. You can't be a basketball player because you're 4 feet tall or whatever,
Right.
A professional basketball player, and you can't, whatever it is, you can't write a book because you can't spell good because you failed English. And I'm talking about me. Okay. I wrote 2 books. Take that. Huh.
Yeah.
Right. And you're not a good speller. And how many books did you write? 2?
I wrote 2 books. Yeah. A children's book and an inspirational book for
published.
women.
I should say published because
yeah.
we've written more that we haven't published.
Yes.
I had 2. What's funny is real quick. What's funny is I had 2, what is it called? Editors go through my book and proofread it. And both of them had like, masters and stuff. And, and they were both like excellent. And I still found a spelling mistake in my book, which is funny because I remember reading or hearing somebody say, even New York Times bestselling books that, have a lot of money behind them, that you're always going to find some kind of a mistake in there.
Yeah.
That it's
just being a human, huh?
Yeah, I thought that was pretty funny. But any of those rules that don't serve you anymore, that that people are saying you can't do this because you can't be a model because you're not as attractive as other people, or because you're a little heavier, or you can't get into shape because you've got big bones, or or you can't be a bodybuilder because you got small muscles, or you're really thin, and again, I was a skinny kid myself. And I was told, that people said to me, like, why are you so skinny? I got like weird comments like that, but I was bodybuilding, and I got myself to 250 pounds. So that wasn't skinny anymore.
No.
So my point is that we want you to write down, 10 to 20 or more rules that don't serve you anymore, that are old, that aren't helping you anymore to be your authentic self. You're the rock star you're born to be. And then from that, I want you to take the top 3 and circle the top 3. Okay. The 3 ones that you want to do right now. Right. And from there, now take those 3 and take some kind of action on them immediately, right now, not later. Obviously if you're driving in your car right now, listening to this, then, pull over. Pull over. Or if it's something that you can take action on right now, well, actually more than likely, you're not going to write down your top 10 to 20 things while you're driving anyway. So I guess it doesn't matter, but write those down. And from those top 3, take some kind of action on right now. Now that can be sending an email out. It can be making a phone call. It can be signing up for something. Maybe you're saying like, hey, I want to learn to play the guitar. Well, you know what? Your action on that can be, I'm going to go online. I'm going to look for somebody that does it. I'm going to ask on Facebook who knows somebody that, that can teach us in my area, or I'm going to Google it. I'm going to go on Yelp.
Find an online program even.
Yep. And if it's later in the evening, you can call and leave a message, or you can email them and say, hey, I'm interested. Right. So you're going to take action on that right now, not tomorrow, not next week, not next month, not someday. You're going to do something, something right now with that. And like I said, it could be an email, call, or anything. I'll give you an example. I wanted to write a book, and I tried doing it on my own, and it wasn't very fun. And I was talking to one of my buddies, and he was saying, hey, I had actually hired this author's coach, and she's amazing, and you should contact her and write a book. Well, the problem was that I was having lunch with him, and we were about to hop on a plane. We were in LA. We were about to hop on a plane and go to Fiji for like 2 weeks, right? We're going to an event out there, and we're about to be all blissed out and stuff because we were doing meditations and yoga and cool stuff like that. I was going actually with Tony. It was at Tony's resort in Amali in Fiji. And I remember thinking like, you know what? I was listening to my own rule. This is at the time that I kind of developed these rules for myself, or rules, or these RockStar lessons, right? These things that I was doing, that I'm teaching you today, that we're teaching you today. And I remember I was like, you know what? When would be a good time to do this? Right now. So what did I do? I picked up my phone and I called her, and I left a message because, I think it was like, 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock at night. So she didn't pick up the phone. I left her a message. She said, hey, I'm about to hop on a plane to Fiji, and I just wanted to connect with you real quick and let you know that I'm going to sign up for this. And I want to, ask a couple questions. And if you can get back to me either tonight, or we could just talk right when I get back, but shoot me an email and let's get this rolling. Here's my email. I gave her my email, and I ended up signing up with her on my way to Fiji. And, I took action on it, and then I wrote a book, right? I wrote 2 books. So I'm just saying that you need to do something right now. Write down those top 10 to 20 things or more, choose the top 3, circle them, and then take some kind of action on them today. Just like Siri Shakti said, if you want to learn to play guitar, and, you don't want to hire somebody, then buy a course on some online course or something for
absolutely.
$5-10.
Yeah. Maybe you at this moment can't afford to go out and get expensive lessons or something. So do something online.
Go on YouTube. YouTube has free lessons. Yeah.
Don't give yourself an excuse like, oh, I can't afford this, or I can't do this because, I hear that a lot. I can't afford it type of things. There's always options out there.
So the action could be like, hey, if I'm going to learn to play guitar, but I can't afford to hire somebody for lessons, well, then go on YouTube, find some videos that look cool, and copy the URL on there and put them on a notepad or in Google Drive or Evernote or whatever you use to keep notes. And that's your action. That's what you did. You set that up. I'm not saying you have to go grab your guitar right now and start playing. That'd be great. But I'm just saying, do something, do something towards that action. And that is the RockStar lesson, or RockStar mission, if you choose to take it on, which we hope you do.
We hope you do. Yep.
All right.
Wonderful.
Anything else you want to add before we...
I think that's it. This was so awesome. RockStars, just get out there and go break those rules. All right.
Yep. Break those rules, and we will see you next week.
Be a rock star in your life and make the world your stage.
Thanks for listening to Rockstar in Life, your source for unleashing your inner rock star. For more tips, training, and free stuff, be sure to go to rockstarinlife.com and join the Rockstar in Life revolution today. Thanks again, and don't forget to make the world your stage.